What up, IDS Mob? It's Harry Wilmington, your dating coach, and today we have another jam-packed show for you. We're gonna be talking about a lot of great stuff. First off, we're gonna be looking at a situation a guy's going through where he feels as though women keep using him as a fake boyfriend. We're gonna talk about what's actually going on in that situation. We're also gonna go into analyzing a video called The Top 5 Questions Men Need to Ask Women Before He Commits, to give you guys insights into what you should be thinking about during that first 3 months of dating that are gonna give you a real idea of who she is, where she's coming from, and if she's a good pick. And then lastly, we're gonna talk about the lies that women are often going to tell you in the early parts of the dating phase that are totally fine, but should also be monitored by you. We're talking about all this and more on today's episode of Harry Dating Conversations. Thanks for tuning into today's show. And by the way, guys, if you have any questions that you want to see me answer on one of these shows or have topics you want to see me cover, you can do one or two things. Write me at harrywilmington@gmail.com or leave your comments down below about things you'd like to see, because this is ultimately your show and I want to make sure that I'm covering topics that you want me to cover, all right? So to that end, let's go ahead and get into today's first topic. So I saw this story I wanted to cover from Reddit. It's the title of it is Women Keep Using Me as a Fake Boyfriend. And I feel like this is a situation I went through in my high school and college days where I would get women to like me just enough to want to be my friend and do things like, go one-on-one to dinners and to movies. And I had one friend one time, I kid you not, take me to a nipple piercing shop to watch her get her nipple pierced. And despite all these things, yet, if I tried to move into a physical realm or a dating realm, it'd be like, whoa, wait, what are you doing? I thought we were just friends. And so I understand where this guy's coming from, and I want to kind of go through the situation and stop on a few points here and there. So he goes, I have a problem where women feel extremely comfortable with me to the point that they'll treat me like a boyfriend even though they know I am straight. This ranges from pretty normal situations like venting to me about problems in their lives and looking for validation, which I'm happy to do, to holding my hands, touching my thighs, and making sexual jokes with me. Now, I'll say this for right now. I understand why this guy has this viewpoint, because for men, we're not gonna do that we're only gonna try to do that thing oftentimes with women that we're trying to get with, and we don't understand that for women can act this way with both guys that are just friends of theirs, guys that they're in relationships with, and more importantly, with other female friends. So yes, female friends will also hold hands, they'll hug, they'll smooch each other on the cheeks sometimes, they'll touch each other in weird places, and they'll make sexual jokes all day. The problem with men is we think because women are doing this, then it means that they must like us also, and then we start thinking that must be what it is. But the reality is, if you started off your situation with a woman where you led it to the friend zone, her viewpoint of you is now in the friend zone. So to her, any action she does with you is gonna read as okay within the realms of the friendship, because both you and her know that you're just friends, nothing more, according to how she's thinking about it. But meanwhile, you're thinking, okay, we're friends, but wait, she's now doing these other things that I would only do with somebody that I'm interested in, therefore she must be building interest as well. And in some cases, those signs could be indicative of her building a like for you, but if it's been a long-time friendship, then that's probably not the case, and you need to do other things to explore that further. But anyway, he says, I've had situations where a woman will start cuddling with me while we watch TV shows together, holding my hand and letting me put my hand on their thighs. They will take naps in my bed with me or have me take naps with them. When inevitably this leads to feelings from my side, women act surprised that would happen. Well, I already said the first part about women can do that stuff and not be a thing, but also here's what I find too, is that because I talked a lot about how, like, for example, my introvert dating success program takes you through the linear pathway of going from meeting her, to greeting her, to attracting her, to getting her on a date, to then escalating, to then getting a hookup, to all these other things, right? So, but in my program, if you go to the website, you notice there is a linear process that has to happen, and there has to be a buildup that occurs in order for a woman to start realizing that she wants to be with you and that her interest is building bit by bit. The problem that men have is when they try to get with their women friends is they think because you're thinking because you've been friends with her for so long that you can just go ahead and jump from the friendship step to the relationship step, no problem, because you've already developed an emotional connection. You've already, spent time together. And so you're thinking there's no need for those steps. There's always need for those steps. Don't believe it's like in those TV shows you see where the man and the woman have been friends since childhood, and all of a sudden he comes to her one day and says, hey, I think I love you. And then she goes from like just being his friend to being like, oh my God, I realize I love him too. That's not how that works. What's gonna actually happen is that she's gonna need to now reassess the whole way she's thought about you now that you're trying to put it in a different direction, which means she needs to also go through the process of being asked on a date, being able to go out and see you in that new light, have you try to make moves on each other. And so you can't just go from like, I'm a friend to like, I wanna be in a relationship. Because in your head, you've been building up to this point where you like her and wanna be with her, and she's had no clue this entire time. And you may be thinking, but she's been throwing out signals. She didn't know that the signals she was throwing out, that you were reading them as these are things that indicate she likes me. She was thinking, I do this, I hold hands with my female friends, I hug my female friends, like, so he's just like a female friend to me, almost like it's no big deal. So you can't cut out those steps. You have to go through the same steps you would go through with a woman you just met for the first time with a female friend who up to this point has not even considered you to be in her relationship plane, all right? So anyway, he says, it's getting to the point where I think I need to start explicitly telling people that if they flirt with me, they need to do it with the intention of actually flirting with me. I had a recent friend who's taken to being my plus one to a lot of events and hanging out on to my arm when we go out. She called a concert we went to with other friends as well, our quote, first date. I recently brought this up with her when I asked if we could talk in my car during a party, and she joked that we should tell people she gave me a handy in the car when we return. I had to ask her if she really means these things or if they were just still jokes. And she asked me, quote, what if I did actually like you? I told her I would be open to dating, but it had to be with mutual interest. And she said that I was not her type, and she was sorry she may have overstepped some boundaries. A couple of weeks ago, she had jokingly suggested I buy her a solo toy for her to use on herself, which she linked to me for her birthday. And when I followed through, she joked that she would be thinking of me every time she used it. So here's the thing, right? This woman, we could say, hey, this woman's playing with his head, whatever. But this is how a lot of women will start out, where it's like they're being playful with words, they're saying things and they're doing things and they're giving these innuendos. And she's hoping that the guy she's saying this to is gonna also be playful and jokey. And in keeping that light mood, it could eventually lead to something. Because right now, let's say she doesn't currently, like she said, that he was not her type, right? But that's because he brought it to her in a tone that was very serious and that was very almost demanding, like, well, if you're gonna do this with me, if you're gonna flirt with me, then I need to know there's mutual interest and we gotta make this a thing and blah, blah, blah. So now he took it from like, she is being jokey to too serious. So at that point, yeah, now she has to backpedal because now it feels off. Versus if she kept it playful and he was able to know how to flirt to where he could flirt back in a vibrant, flirty, but also sexual way, then, because I tell you all the time, women live in the land of maybe, where it's like, she may be willing to do something or not, but it depends on what the guy does. So if, let's say, for example, they go to their car, he's trying to have a serious conversation, right? But let's say he pulled out, hey, let's go to the car real quick. I got to talk to you about something. And then you go there and just make up some funny, silly joke. She's like, oh, you silly guy. You're just trying to blah, 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 blah. That could lead to like, now they're having playful banter. Now they're alone in the car together. He starts touching her. She's like, stop it. Like, girl, you know you want to do blah, 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 blah. Or like, okay, you touch me then. Or like they could be touching each other. The point is that it becomes a playful thing versus a serious thing. So even though she may not have intended for him to be her type, the reality is women fall for guys all the time that initially weren't their type, but the reason that those guys are winning those girls is because the guy's not harping on the fact that he may not be her type. If anything, he's thinking, well, she might not think I'm her type now, but spend a little bit of time together, we can make this work out. And that's not gonna be every situation. So I'm not trying to press you guys, be like, oh, she said I'm not type, I should go after her nonetheless, because that's what Harry said. No, what I'm saying is that because women often live in a fluid state and that a lot of times their attraction is built on how a guy's making them feel, then even though you might not be her height, her weight, whatever, you making her feel certain things could make the mood shift. But especially if you're moving in the world as a confident guy who's able to be jokey, who's able to be flirty, and most importantly, is not taking relationships so seriously, then they'll be open to changing their mind. But at the point that you start trying to call them out on stuff or saying, well, if you flirt with me, then this and that, now you're putting it on like, if you flirt with me, you have to be with me. And women don't like to feel like a guy is trying to force them into liking them or being in a relationship with them. So you lose when you be this serious. And again, I'm saying this based on the fact that I was a guy that used to feel this same way. Oh, she wants to go to movies with me and she's doing this, she's playing games, and she doesn't want to be with me, but she's letting me do X, Y, and Z, but then we can't get to the final step. Once I got a little bit looser and a lot less, honestly, controlling about what things had to be in order for things to work out and stop, but whatever, then I was able to hook up with women that I had no idea I'd ever be able to hook up with because I wasn't stressing them out about how it was. And I wasn't making it less fun by trying to be super serious. The more serious you are, guys, you take the fun out of it for women, and it results in you being able to still hang out with them, but not in a relationship capacity. And as a guy, as I said before, you should not be chasing a relationship. That is their job. Your job is to bring fun to the table, to bring hookups to the table, to have like fun, vibrant interactions, and to make sure that you're keeping them happy when you're doing these things. You getting super serious, especially super serious before you've even gone on a date with her. Like, have you even asked her on a date? You have not. So in effect, this is ultimately what ends up happening is you end up feeling like you're being used as the fake boyfriend, but the reality is you're not, you started off the friendship the wrong way because this is my thing too, is that as a guy, most of the women that you're meeting, you shouldn't be trying to be friends with. Like, I know women will have a, conniption about, men and women can't be friends. That's so totally not true. As a guy, you know that inevitably with your female friendships, you probably want to get with them at some point in time. Or even if you don't, that's also totally fine, but there's still going to be at times like that connection there. It's like, but things could pop off at any moment. So when you're meeting these women for future references, you should be going in thinking if there's any chance that you will be possibly attracted to them, that you need to go that route first and explore that route, because it's easier to try to initially date them to see what's what and then realize, okay, this isn't going beyond just a friendship and then go into friendship mode then, versus I'm gonna go the friendship route and then hope that maybe down the line, if she likes me, we can date. And to women, that'll feel like a lie, because the whole time they'll be thinking, he was trying to get to know me as a friend, but really he wanted to date me this whole time. Like, that feels like an ick thing, and that's not fair to them. Anyway, he says, I'm getting to the point where I need to start asking people immediately when they flirt with me if they're actually flirting with me. I'm starting to feel crazy with people treating flirting with me like a game. A woman I was spending time with nearly every week, going to bars, coffee shops, and musicals together, was offended that I developed feelings for her, as if it was totally out of left field that something like that would happen. Well, again, to her, it is, because as far as she knew, it was going down the road of friendship. So you blindsided her when you suddenly liked her, because all the things you're seeing as signals that indicate that she likes you, she's just seeing as being a nice person, being a friendly woman, doing something that she would do with her other gay friends or her female friends. It's not different, especially because you didn't point it in that direction. This goes back to self-responsibility. It is your job as the guy to point the direction of where you want this interaction to go with her. If you're thinking you might want to be romantic with her, you got to start off with getting the number and asking for dates. If you don't do that, you're leading it towards a friendship, and she's gonna be mad later because you're the one that led it towards friendship. He says, I'm fine with people not liking me back, but I don't want to be treated like I'm crazy when people engage in datey and coupley behavior and expect me to just handle it like I'm just chilling with the boys. I've already expressed this again. They're thinking that you're the one taking in the friendship direction. They do that with their other friends all the time. So to women, it's no different. If you're not, this is why I tell you guys also, when you meet a woman and you want to hang out with her, you don't call it a hangout. You say, hey, I want to take you on a date. I want to go to a dinner date with you, a movie date with you. You use the word date. And I learned this in college when I was I've told you guys about when I started asking female friends of mine, like, hey, I want to do practice dates because I need more practice trying to get into the groove of how a date works. But I would say, I want to take you on a practice date. They knew it was a date. Even if it was just in the guise of friendship, they knew that this had the capacity to have romantic levels because I'm calling it a date. And women are going to follow your lead on this. If you call it a date and they say yes, then that means that they understand what the consequences could be if they're agreeing with you to go on a date. But the fact that they're knowing those consequences and are wanting to go means that they're open with exploring what that could possibly look like with you. If you're not doing that and just saying, let's just hang out, blah, 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 then when you get to where you want to try to, confess your feelings to her or say you like her, she's going to be like, but we haven't gone on any dates. And you're thinking, but we have. No, you went on hangouts in her head because that's what you called them, So then he says, it's led me to start questioning whether any woman is actually interested in me, and it feels like that limits my ability to romantically connect with people, but it's wearing away at my sanity. So ultimately, guy, that's what you do, is that you have to start calling things what they are. You gotta call them dates. When you meet women for the first time, if you think they're cute and attractive and that you could have something after one conversation, you lead it into, hey, this is really great, let me get your number, call them later for a date. It really is that simple. That'll keep you out of the realm of being used as the fake boyfriend. But also, if you have women in your life that you realize you're starting to like, and they're still trying to treat you as a fake boyfriend after you've maybe expressed that to them or whatever, then you have to learn to say no to those things. And as a guy, it can be hard because you're thinking, but I have female friends, I don't want them to hurt me. Here's the reality. If you have a crush on a female friend, you already know that every time you see her and have to hear about her dating other guys or her guy troubles, or you're getting all cuddly, but you know you're not able to get it to go anywhere, it's going to frustrate you. And that's gonna happen across the board for every female friend that you think you continue to be friends with, even if you like them. So I'm not in the habit of trying to keep around female friends that I would actually date, you know? You have to be mindful of that. If you would legitimately want to date them and you've expressed, hey, I want to take you on a date, and they've said, oh, I'm not interested in that, then at that point, you have a decision to make, which is, do you continue the friendship, in which case you cannot complain about that or ask them out anymore? Or do you say realistically, I need to now lessen my time with this person because I know what I want from them in terms of a relationship situation, and this is not it. And as a guy, that's totally fine. You can totally say, hey, you know what? I think I see myself really wanting to leave this towards more of a relationship thing, and you're not seemingly interested in that. So for now, I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna just pull back. And hey, the female friend will get frustrated at you, but in the long run, it's better for your relationship health because you know what you want. And if you know you're gonna be frustrated around that female friend, it's better for you to take yourself out of that situation than to stay in it just because it'll make her happy, but it's making you miserable the entire time. Real quick, guys, I talk a lot about the various programs and ebooks that I have at my website, but I also have a musical album that I put out called Kevin Samuels Was Right. It's based on some of the teachings that Kevin Samuels talked about, where I used some of his catchphrases that he said and titles and made them into songs. And it is a really, really great album.
Boo!
I'm sorry, what?
Boo! Boo!
Dude, why are you booing me?
Come on, Harry. Nobody wants to hear a dating coach trying to rap. Boo!
Well, I mean, I know I give relationship advice, but I can do two things. I can give relationship advice and also rock the mic, as they say.
No one says that anymore. Ugh, your slang is so whatever. Boo!
Well, look, dude, before you judge me, okay, I'll play you a quick snippet from one of my songs, and you can tell me what you think, all right? Here's a quick snippet.
But now she digging her heels in, said a girlfriend got a better man with a better job and a better plan, and I'm making bread, but it's more like crumbs, and just like a bum, she won't give me none till I straighten up, and I'm looking at her like, what the fuck, Rich Toast are you on? I point out that her girlfriend is in high debt and her better man is in jail again and got 5 kids and 5 other chicks and my car's paid and I take us on vacay. But she don't care, no she don't care, she just wanna complain. She talk that shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. She talk that shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. She talk that shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. She talk that shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. Yo, that's that sign language. 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 I can't stand that sign language. Yo, that's that sign language. Yo, that's that sign language. Yo, that's that sign language.
So yeah, it's good, right?
To be honest, it's not half bad, but the other half still sucks. Boo!
How are you still hating, Nanwan?
I'm just saying, if people want to check out some real rap, they should check out my album.
You got an album too?
Of course I do. It's called No Girls For You, the ultimate guide to losing the girl of your dreams. And it is awesome. I even have Don Magic Wand on a few tracks, and it's amazing. Take a listen.
Hey, you can't plug your stuff on my
Hello, how are you? My name is Nanwan. I wet my bed nightly and I'm still a virgin. And I think that me and you should date out on a somewhere go. You can wear something sexy but don't dress like a... Oh no, wait! That's not me talking, that's my brain. My words know the tongue that I said to men. I mean, to say a hot girl, my tongue gets twirled. I don't know what I'll say. And the next thing I know, my chance with her is blown. My mouth gets carried away. I'm tongue-tied, 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 tongue-tied. I get tongue-tied, 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 tongue-tied.
Wow, wasn't that great?
Yeah, okay, it was fine.
So, yeah, they should definitely check out my album instead of yours.
How about I just tell people to check out both of our albums? Fair?
Oh, okay. But only because it's your show.
Great. So yeah, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and check out both my album, Kevin Samuels Was Right, and Nan Juan's album, No Girls For You, which is the soundtrack to my ebook as well. All right? Check that out at the website today. Does that work for you?
Works for me. Yay!
So let's talk about the top 5 questions men need to ask women before they start to commit. And I found this video on TikTok under this guy's name is a Black American Bad Boy. And I saw the video, was like, you know what? He brings up a lot of great points that I feel that in the course of the dating phase, you need to ask. Now, I'll preface this by saying, he says you should ask these questions, and it sounds like he's saying ask them point blank. I typically say that because women take 2 to 3 months to solidify their feelings, you need to take that 2 to 3 months doing your own due diligence about a woman. And so these kind of questions are things you should keep in mind and sporadically bring up within the course of that 3 months. So by the end of that 3 months, when she's coming to you and saying, hey, what are we? Can we be in a relationship? You'll be able to assess based on these questions if she actually makes a good pick and if you should continue forward with her, or if she's one you should leave by the wayside. So let's go ahead and get into some of these questions.
So here are the top 5 questions that men need to ask a woman before he commits. There are a lot of men out here making poor decisions on women. I'm here to help y'all to stop making those poor decisions. The first question should always be, who raised you? Quick shout out to the OG TK Kirkland. Was it a single parent home where your parents are guardians, abusers? Do you have an existing relationship with your mother and father? Do you know your father? If so, do you have any anger, hate, hurt, or hard feelings toward that man? I don't care who likes it or not, that truly does influence how a woman interacts with a man.
Now that I have found to be absolutely true. Women who have great relationships with their fathers, they have generally a really good view and concept of who men are, how they act, and they're not gonna be so quick to jump on a guy for acting like a guy. Whereas women that come from households where either the father wasn't there or the father was abusive, as sorry as I feel for those women, the reality is that those women often come to relationships with men with a lot of baggage. They've often also then chosen other men that have similar qualities to the abusive father or the neglectful father, which means that when she comes to you, she's gonna be in this realm of having an ideal of how men are supposed to act that are very negative. And if you act the opposite, it's actually going to freak her out, because the practice she's been in is men always treat me like crap. They ready to abuse me. They don't want to listen to me. And when you act the opposite way, even though you would think that would be a good thing, if they're in the practice of being around toxic men, then you being not toxic is going to freak her out more, because she's not going to know what to expect. All right. But across the board, women that come from families where they get along great, they've learned how to have communication styles that are actually beneficial, they've been heard and understood in their relationships with their mom and their dad and their siblings and stuff like that, those women are gonna be an absolute joy to date. But if there's any kind of toxicity in the family unit there's gonna be a lot of things that she's gonna need to overcome to have a well-balanced relationship with you. And if she hasn't already worked on those things, sorry to say it, guys, but not really sorry, it's not your job to come in and be Captain Save-'em or to fix those things. She needs to be doing the work herself already. If she hasn't, you can feel sorry for her. Do not date her.
Number 2, how do you handle your emotions? Do you shut down? Am I gonna have to drag information out of you? Do you lash out at people? Do you become too hard to be around? Do people have to escape you when you're angry? I've heard women admit that whenever they're upset, they can't even be in the same house as anybody else. That is a really big red flag.
Now, I think that this question could potentially come up at some point that you should ask, but the problem is that's the same thing as like a woman asking a man, hey, so would you ever harm me or abuse me in a relationship? It's one of those questions where the other person can say, of course, I would never do that, or I would have a rational reaction to if X, Y, and Z happened. But people can say that in the moment with no evidence, and it'd be a lot, because saying one thing and experiencing a thing are completely different. So for you guys, yes, you want to see if she's emotionally stable in these moments, but the easiest way to do that, or the better way to do that rather, is to actually give yourself 2 to 3 months to date her, and when conflicts arise or when you have a differing opinion than hers, see how she reacts. Because it's very easy for women to say, oh, I would be totally even killer. I would want to sit down and talk about it like a rational adult. And I've done this. I've talked to women on dates where it's like, oh yeah, like I would totally just sit there and hear what you have to say and we could have a mutual conversation. But then fast forward to a few months later, get them into a conflict and like, you did this and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to listen. I don't want to talk about it. I'm leaving the room. And then you realize, so she lied. So like, I should have just waited and observed and then just asked her and assumed that what she was telling me was the truth. And we want to, it's easy because when we give answers to people, we want to give an answer that we feel would put us in a good light, and that would be the ideal situation. Like, you ask a woman how she would react, of course she's gonna say, well, ideally, I would just like, be able to sit there and take what you're saying as a constructive criticism and be able to listen. Like, that sounds really good on paper to say, so she's gonna say it. But in practice, she's probably gonna react a different way. So you have to you can ask that question, but it's better to be more observant of like how she actually is, which is why it's very important earlier if you as a guy to not be afraid to run into conflict. If she does something that annoys you, or she hurts your feelings in some way, or she says something out of pocket, you want to call out those things early on to see what her reaction is going to be. Is she going to apologize, like I talked about in the previous video, or is she going to be blaming you, or saying, well, I only did this because you did this thing, or that's not a thing, or well, you did whatever, because if she's responding that way, that's bad. But you'll get to experience that as you actually are willing to go into conflicts with her and get her natural reaction versus you asking and getting the proper sounding reaction.
Third question. Are you petty? I've said this before. If she's the type that likes to return energy, that is a sign of inconsistent character. Leave her. That means that her respect, her desire, her compassion, even her infidelity may be just as inconsistent. Bro, all jokes aside, run. Because the very definition of petty is to care about small, unimportant things, and that may lead to her being unnecessarily unkind. You don't want her. So if she says, how I treat you will be a reflection of how you treat me, wrap it up. Do not pass go. Do not collect on the cheeks. Do not do anything else but pay the tab and part ways. Trust me, you'll thank me later.
Yo, I never really thought about that, but I like that the fact that he said that if she says the way you treat me is how I'm gonna treat you. Here's why I guess that's good advice, is because there's gonna be times where, like, say you come home from work and you've had like a bad day, right? And so you get in there and she's like, hey babe, how was your day? And you're like, I'm just blah, 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 blah. Well, in that moment, if you're grumpy, do you want her to now be grumpy to you? Or do you want her to be like, hey babe, like I know you had a bad day at work, but like, hey, let's just, relax. Like, you want her to be in a mood that's gonna get you out of your mood. Just like there's gonna be times when, she's had a bad day or she's being all hormonal, and then she's showing up in a way that is not usually the way she shows up. In those moments, she's not gonna want you to be negative. Like, especially like when women get on their periods and they have all kinds of like, hormone things going and they're cranky and they're moody. Like, the last thing they're gonna want in those moments is for you to be like, well, you're moody, so I'm gonna be moody too. Like, that doesn't benefit. So yeah, a woman that's gonna be petty and playing tit for tat, you do not want that. You want a woman that's gonna, at times, be better than you, just like at times you're gonna be better than her, but you're both trying to ultimately feel for the other person in those moments and be like, let me get you back to a better state of mind, or let's talk about why you're feeling this way or why you're lashing out, versus, well, you're lashing out, well, bump that, I'm gonna lash out at you too. Like, you don't need that, guy. It's not fair to either of you to do that.
Now, number 4, and this is very important, have you been SA'd?
An SA'd, by the way, means have you been assaulted in a physical manner?
Gentlemen, if there's even the slightest chance of this becoming a sexual relationship, this needs to be addressed up front. If the answer is yes, has she been to therapy? Has she done the work to heal, or at least enough work to be able to identify the triggers? If she's able to identify the triggers, tell her that she has to name those triggers to you. What she says should be what your decision to leave or to stay is based on. And from the bottom of my heart, with all sincerity, there should be no exceptions.
Now, unfortunately, if you talk to women globally, the majority of them in some way or capacity have been SA'd. And so to say, don't date any women that have ever been that way, most women have gone through that. So, but to his point, a woman that has gone through that, what are her triggers that make her feel like that's happening again? Has she gone to therapy? Has she actively dealt with the repercussions of those situations? If she has, and she's able to verbalize, hey, like, I can't do these certain positions because it reminds me of that, or you can't say these certain things because it triggers me back. Like, that's a woman being loving by giving you warnings and ideals about what things are going to cause her to feel in that certain way. And that, in that case, it's totally fine because she has given you warnings about that stuff. But women that are going in blind and haven't done that stuff and just everything you do is just trigger, it's going to become very difficult to date those kind of women, because we can feel bad for her all day again, but if she's not dealing with her own traumas and allowing you to be understanding and helping to navigate your way through what those were for her so you won't trip up and do things that are minor of that, then it's just going to cause a lot of pain and anxiousness and anxiety on your part, not knowing what you should or shouldn't do around her or shouldn't say around her, and it'll lead to bad times.
Now, number 5, almost just as important, what does family planning look like to her? Is she on birth control? Is she pro-life, pro-choice? Does she plan on having children anytime soon? Also, state your status on becoming a father right then and there. If you do not see yourself being capable of being there for a child if that situation does arise, say that. Seriously, discuss a plan of action before you ever get to the point where pregnancy happens.
And yeah, too many people, unfortunately, just go into like dating, situationships, and relationships like, oh, I'll just do whatever and things are fine and nothing will happen to me and blah, blah, blah. And they go out there and they hook up and they're unprotected and then they're having all these babies that they don't want to take care of. So for one, if you don't have a vasectomy and if she's not on birth control, then you should not be having any kind of unprotected sex at all, because all these babies that are just popping out as a result of, oh, we just hooked up and things happen. Things never just happen. You, as the guy, did not properly plan. You didn't make sure that she had protection. You didn't make sure you had protection. And so, even though, the woman's the one that's letting us in, you got to take responsibility for your part. If she's like, hey, come in me and, don't wear protection, and you decide to agree, that is your fault. Even if she left herself open to that, you still decided, I'm going to agree to this plan. Oh, I was horny in the moment. I didn't want to disappoint her. Disappoint her versus having a kid for 18 plus years that you got to deal with for the rest of your life with a woman that you don't actually care about, all right? And then also to that point, yeah, if you're a guy that doesn't want kids and she wants kids, I do not care how much you guys love each other or grow to care for each other. That is a thing that unequivocally is going to break you guys up. And when I was doing online dating, I would put on my profile, I'm living the child-free life. I would still have women hit me up, take me on a few dates and be like, oh, I actually want kids. And I'd be like, why did you match with me? Because I told you going forth on my profile, it was on my profile, I don't want kids. This is not a thing that I'm gonna change my mind about. No matter how much I love you, no matter how great your stuff is in the sack, I'm not changing my mind. And so you as a guy have to press that, because there are gonna be some women that come along and be like, I thought I could change your mind. And if your guy already knows emphatically you don't want kids, you cannot think that she's never gonna be resentful for that or not try to push the agenda once you get married. Because some women will think, well, if I just trap him into a marriage and I'll just be like, boom, we're married now. Oh, we should have a kid, and he'll understand because he loves me. And to prove that he loves me, I'll make sure he needs to get me pregnant. And that's not how any of this works. So just understand that, guy. He's absolutely right here.
Now for some bonus information. If she's fresh out of a relationship, don't do that. You do not want to be the rebound guy. It never ends well. Just don't do it.
It does not, because women will get out of a relationship and it's almost like they're trying to, especially if the guy broke it off or if the guy in the last part of the relationship was kind of slacking off and not showing that he cared as much, then women will go out there and that first guy they date is to prove to themselves that they're still attractive and can still get a guy. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the guy that she wants long-term. Now, that's not all situations, and there are ways that as a guy, you can play that so that way, even if you were the rebound guy, you can get it to the finish line and actually date her. But more often than not, women coming fresh out of a relationship, if they haven't given themselves the actual time to grieve that relationship, to go through a period of singleness where they can kind of assess where they went wrong, what they did wrong, what the other person that they're with did wrong, and really come to a peace about that situation, then yeah, you're being used for a hookup and for an ego boost. And that's not where you want to land with women that just got out of a relationship.
Beware of any form of the phrase, you're not my usual type. That means she has zero experience with a guy like you, and you're more than likely going to be the experiment. Don't do it.
Yeah, I talked about that earlier, guys. If they're saying things like, oh, well, you're not what I usually date, then she has no context for what you're gonna bring to the table. It can feel uncomfortable. It can feel a little bit honestly like you're controlling, because going from guys that were abusing her to a guy like you that's just trying to set boundaries could be like, oh my God, how dare you? It's a lot to deal with.
If she's celibate and you're not, let that woman stay single. And last but not least, please take this with you. If she ain't nasty, you don't want her.
That last one he said, if she's not nasty, you don't want her. Real talk, guys. I'm gonna be honest with you. Having vanilla sex in the bedroom with a woman that just lies there like a dead fish and is not willing to do things that she would be considered outside the realm of just vanilla sex, like, doing certain different positions, you going down on each other, you bringing toys into the equation, you bringing other, if you're into that kind of lifestyle, other people to the situation, or you wanting to do it in a variety of different places outside of your house, or, her not being able to bring stuff to the bedroom that's just like the stuff you wouldn't want to talk about with other people, but be like, oh, but in this realm it's totally fine. I have found that the lack of creativity in the bedroom correlates with a very dull relationship, and with a woman that is very conservative in tone, which isn't bad in terms of like, not overexposing herself in public, but also in terms of her attitude though, like, thinking things have to be a certain way. And if you have certain thoughts or feelings about things that you're suddenly like a toxic guy or whatever, like all that stuff translates. So yeah, if she's not open with you in the bedroom to do anything and not have any kind of judgment, then you probably have a very judgmental woman, and that is going to be a headache to deal with. So hopefully, guys, you've gained some stuff from this video talking about the various 5 things that you as a guy should be questioning women about before you commit to them. And that'll guide you in the first 3 months of dating to really see at the end of it if this is the woman of your dreams, or if it's a woman that you thought was a dream woman that needs to go down to the wayside. By the way, guys, obviously trying to figure out which women are which ones are going to be more open versus not, which ones are going to be the ones that are worth committing to versus not, can be its own struggle in and of itself. I would love to be able to coach you if you need help figuring that kind of stuff out. You can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, click on the coaching tab, and I'll be happy to assist you with whatever you're going with today. You can also go there for various ebooks, audiobooks, and programs, all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Right now, I recommend going there and checking out some free excerpts from my newest book, Stop Losing Women, The Ultimate Guide to Dating the Women of Your Dreams. That book is 250-something odd pages, and it is jam-packed with all the ins and outs of things that you need to stop doing today to get the women of your dreams tomorrow. So check all that out at the website. So now I want to talk about lies that women tell men in the dating phase that are okay, but need to be monitored. And this comes up because I had a comment left under my Women with High Interest Always Have High Libido video. And in that video, one of the things I said is that in my experience, I found that women have said things to me, for example, like, with my previous partner, I wasn't really touchy-feely like that. But with you, Harry, I suddenly want to touch you all the time. Or they'll say things like, in the past, like I had a girl one time tell me, man, like hooking up with you is so good that I have these toys that I normally use and I don't use them anymore. I just wait for you to come over. And these are comments that I got that were unprompted. So in my head, I'm like, that sounds great. More likely than not, those are probably true statements. But to be fair, this guy left a comment under that video. He said, another side to this story, it's common for women to say, quote, I'm not normally like this when they're horny for you, or, quote, I didn't do this with my exes. That doesn't mean it's true. And you know what? I gotta be fair. As a dating coach that has studied female communication as it pertains to the early parts of the dating phase, and even like a little bit later on when they're in a relationship, I'm very understanding of the fact that there are times when women are going to lie to men to make them feel better about themselves or to make them really feel special, even if that thing was not true. And you know what? I am totally fine with that. If these women in my past said those things because they wanted to, maybe win points with me or wanted me to feel special in that moment, I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine if the things those women said were not actually true. Because I'm very understanding that even if it wasn't the truth, the fact that they were doing those actions as a means to get in my good graces only shows that even more so that they had a high level of interest in me, to the point where they wanted to say something that they knew was gonna make me feel great in that moment. And to be fair, I don't have any way of going into their past to see if what they said was a lie or not. But it's the fact that they're willing to compliment me in that way, knowing that it would give me an ego boost that would make me feel like the man. And ultimately, guys, you want women that are gonna make you feel like the man. And sometimes, whether you like it or not, it's gonna mean that in the dating phase of the relationship, there are gonna be times when women are going to say things to you that may be what we'll consider little lies, but that they're lies, right? But my question is always, are these lies things that are actually harmful, or are they things that are meant to make you feel a boost as a man, even if she may be feeling or thinking other things? Now, with that said, I feel you as a guy should be as honest and forthright as possible. Yes, there are gonna be times where you say things like, well, she'll come to you and say like, oh, do I look pretty in this dress? And you don't like the color. you might still be like, oh yeah, that dress looks great on you, babe. It looks so vibrant and whatever, because you recognize in that moment, she wants to feel pretty. She's not asking about the dress because she wants to actually know the logistics of if the color's good or the cut's good. She wants to know if you find her pretty and attractive in relation to the dress. So we know in that moment, we could tell the truth and say, actually, babe, that color on you looks totally horrible, blah, blah, blah. Or you could say, hey, babe, you know what? You have a great pick and whatever. And even if you don't believe it in that moment, it makes her feel good. You know, we all do this. So I wanted to point out examples of the kinds of lies that women will tell you in the dating phase and also times during the relationship to either build up or keep your interest. And I also stress this too, is that even though these lies are being told, you're gonna recognize that these lies are happening. You as a guy still need to be mindful that, you know, these lies at times are gonna be okay, but some of these lies, you also wanna be able to ask women like, hey, how do you really feel? How are you really thinking about this? Because we don't want them to spend their whole life lying. And sometimes they're doing certain things that I'll talk about later to like keep the peace or to make you feel good even when they're feeling something the opposite. And you need to be able to go in as a guy and say, hey, but how do you really feel? And sometimes women won't do that of their own accord because they know how guys' egos are, and they know sometimes we don't want to hear bad news or that we're going to react very strongly if they tell us something that we don't like. You got to learn to drop your ego and be open to hearing things that you're not going to like, in the hopes of bettering your relationship and getting true communication. But that said, these little lies here and there aren't a big deal. So here are the one. The first one is lying about their appearance. Yes, when you first date a woman, they're gonna be dressing a certain way. They're gonna be probably wearing push-up bras, even though their boobs don't hang up like this anymore. They're gonna be wearing makeup that covers freckles or scars that they have. Those are normal things that they're trying to do to get in your good graces and to build attraction, because they understand that as you get to know their personality, then you'll be more accepting of seeing them when they're not always like that. And you know, guys say like, oh, I love women the best when they're like, they have no makeup on and they're just dressed down. And women hear that and they're like, that's great, except we know how men actually react to us when we are plainclothes Jane with the hoodie on versus vibrant woman with the hair up done and the makeup on, right? So in the beginning, yes, you're gonna probably see her dress up a little bit more, put up a little bit more makeup, and she's doing that to get you into her good graces. You have to know as a guy, as well as she's presenting herself, always be aware that this is the facade and that eventually you're gonna see the real version of her, but ideally it's not too off from how she's presenting herself early on, but that's a lie that we're all telling. Just like guys are putting on all these cups of cologne and cutting their hair certain ways and whatever, like we're all doing this in the beginning, it's totally fine. Another lie women are gonna tell is they're gonna act like they like something that you do when they don't. So if you're a guy that plays video games a lot, oh, I love when you play video games, this and that, and you know, there are plenty of women these days that are into video games. But women will say like, oh, I'm into your video games, or I'm into the way you watch sports all the time, or I just love how you talk about, you know, studio stuff or cameras all the time, and tell me more. And they're doing that because part of them legitimately wants to actually get to know you, even if they're not actually interested in what you're talking about. Because them just knowing about you is what's building the interest, not the thing you're specifically talking about. And they want to see that you have a passion for something and that you really are able to commit to a passion or a thing, because that's gonna correlate with you being able to do that to them. But that doesn't mean that they like every single thing you're talking about, just like you don't like half the stuff she's talking about or some of the movies that she wants you to see, you don't like those either. So that's another lie that she's gonna probably tell early on. But again, you can get to a point in the relationship, you can say, hey babe, like I talk about this stuff a lot, or I know like, you know, I wanna go to this football game this weekend and I wanna invite you, but honestly, if you're not interested, that's totally fine too. Because women wanna know that you recognize that they're trying to get to know you and trying to show an interest in what you're into, but that they don't want to participate all the time, you know? The third thing is sometimes they'll lie to surprise you. Like, hey, come to my house and we'll make dinner. And then you get there, surprise, I'm taking you out to dinner. Those lies, totally fine. Women are gonna by default have to lie in order to surprise you. So understand that that's gonna happen, right? So the fourth lie women might tell is lying to protect your feelings. This can look like this, right? Let's say you had planned a date. Let's say, for example, you had tickets to like the Taylor Swift concert, right? You knew she was a big Taylor Swift fan and you got the tickets. And then let's say you lost your job all of a sudden, and in order to cover rent that month, you had to sell the Taylor Swift tickets. Now you gotta go to your girlfriend and say, hey babe, I had to sell my Taylor Swift tickets because I lost my job and I couldn't pay rent. I'm so sorry. In that moment, she may be like, you know, it's okay. Like, I understand, like, you know, you do a lot for me and I understand, you know, this thing came up, you weren't aware of it. And so it's totally fine. You know, it's totally fine. I can just wait till the movie comes out and see the concert then. I still love you, babe, whatever, right? Now, in that moment, especially with Taylor Swift tickets, she's lying. Like, she's lying that that's not that's not a hurt to her, but she understands the severity of the situation, and she knows that harping on you about it is going to hurt your feelings, and that you're still trying to feel that you're providing and being able to do things for her, even at the moment you had to do a big thing and take away a thing that she wanted to do, right? So women will do this because if a smart woman will understand that you don't always mean to do things that are going to disappoint her, and sometimes it's out of your control. That doesn't mean that she doesn't feel that, but it does mean that she's recognizing, but in that moment, you don't need to hear about that. That's something she can express later, like, oh man, you need to sell those tickets, and I was just so disappointed, but I knew that he had to do what he had to do, but that doesn't take away her being disappointed. So her lying in that moment is actually beneficial because it's protecting your feelings as a man about how you're able to do for her. The fifth lie women will tell is trying to avoid unnecessary conflict. This is, for example, a thing like she might claim that she's okay with you needing some personal space when even though she's not, she wants to spend time with you. Things like that. In those moments, she's trying to avoid a conflict. She's not trying to, in the moment, say, well, I feel hurt and I need to be held and cuddled in this moment, even though you need your alone time and blah, blah, blah. Especially if you're an introvert, there are going to be several times where, like, you want to do things by yourself and she's going to feel some kind of way about it, but she's trying to be respectful. She does, even if in the moment we're like, she needs you in that moment, but she's recognizing, but he needs his alone time still, so I'm not going to harp on it, but she may want to talk about it later. But so even if she's trying to avoid unnecessary conflict, this is where you as a guy need to be at times willing to say, she's trying to avoid the conflict, but I got to have the conflict so I can at least get out, why I need this thing or why I'm saying this thing or why I'm doing this action. And that'll make her feel better actually because she's recognizing in you that you're recognizing in her that she needs to be talked about with stuff and that some conflicts are unavoidable, but just being willing to have the conversation makes her feel like you get her and that you want to actually connect with her, all right? But yeah, some women will do things to avoid unnecessary conflict because they don't want to have that fight or they recognize that you don't need to have that fight in that moment, and that's admirable, but recognize that as a guy because you can't get away with that all the time. Another lie women will tell is hiding mild annoyances about you. These are things like, you leave your beard hair in the sink when you shave, or you forget to put the toilet seat down at times, or she wishes you would cook more meals than you do because she feels like she's always doing it. These are things that could be mildly annoying that a smart woman's gonna be like, in the grand scheme of things, these aren't big deals because I'm sure I do plenty of things that mildly annoy him that he doesn't bring up. Hey, I dated girls where it's like, I recognize again, I leave shavings in the sink, but maybe they don't pick up after themselves, or maybe they just leave random things around the apartment or whatever, right? Like, I'm not gonna harp on her for small, minor things either because I recognize she's gonna probably deal with some of my minor things and not make a big deal about them. And it's not to say you can't ever occasionally mention like these things that are mild annoyances. I'm just saying you got to look at the bigger picture. If this person, for example, is not cheating on you and all they do is like occasionally leave a pillow off the sofa or don't make the bed, are these big things in the grand scheme of the relationship? No. So women will be fine acting like these things don't bug them at times because they're looking at, would I rather him not make the bed or cheat on me? Would I rather him not put a toilet seat down or embezzle money? Women that have a good head on their shoulders will recognize that and not make such a big deal about things, right? Number 7, another thing women will lie about that is, small in the grand scheme of things is lying to you for encouragement. Telling you things like, oh, babe, I totally think you can do that thing. Or yeah, you start that business. I'm going to be behind you. There's probably a big fear behind them like, okay, I don't know if he can actually do it or not. And oh my God, if he doesn't, we're going to be in dire straits. But they're trying to be encouraging. They're trying to be positive. They're trying to make sure that you don't have anything that's going to second guess you from doing those things that you want to do, right? And so women will do this and you can bring up, hey babe, are there any concerns you have about what I'm trying to do or anything that you see that maybe I'm not seeing? They want to be part of that conversation because they want to feel like they're part of your journey. But yeah, women will totally lie and act like they have complete confidence in you when they don't. And you know what? Again, I'm totally fine with that because sometimes as a guy, I need to feel like I have somebody on my team that believes in me so I can actually have more encouragement to want to go do the thing versus somebody that's second guessing. And then I'm like, well, now I don't know if I should do the thing or not. And now we're both in dire straits, Number 8, thing that women will lie about is acting like they're not worried to avoid adding stress. This goes back to like, yeah, there's gonna be times when women are very, very worried about a new thing you're trying, an adventure you're trying to go on or take her on. Just the unknown in general can freak women out. Now, luckily, because most women are willing to do stuff, if a guy's there to lead them and guide them through it, that they're usually gonna be pretty open to whatever you're trying to do. But that doesn't take away from, they could also be very, very worried. But they are understanding that bringing that worry to you could cause you to be more stressed, which could cause you to second guess your leadership of the situation, which could cause even more harm. So some women will not bring this to your attention. Now, again, as a guy, just be mindful when you're trying new things, women probably have questions. Let them ask the questions so you can answer those questions so you can relieve them of some of the worry that they have. Because if you don't do that, then that's not fair to them, the thing you're doing, not trying to keep them in the loop and not trying to reassure them, you know? And then the ninth thing that women will lie about is they're going to be comforting you and reassuring you at times when they themselves are not actually sure that everything's going to be okay. Like, you know, you get some kind of disease, for example, and they're like, oh yeah, everything's going to be totally fine. When they're thinking in the back of their head, like, it could totally not be fine. They could totally like not survive through this. Like, oh my God, because this goes back to they're not trying to add stress and stuff. And so they're going to try to comfort you and assure you during these difficult times, even if they also have similar concerns, but they might not want to express them because they want to make sure that they're giving you the impression that they're totally fine and that they're there for you and they're trying to, you know, be there in a strong capacity for you, even though they themselves may not completely be, you know, comfortable with everything that's going on, right? So be aware that women are going to tell these kind of lies, and just know that, you know, women say, hey, I really believe in you and this and that. You know, you might be thinking, do they really mean that? But just take it as it is in the moment and be assured, but also know that even if when they're saying these things or doing these things, that doesn't mean that they're either not lying or that there's not actually worry and concern that's there that maybe they can't express. Or that just in general, they're not expressing things that they actually want to express. So you as a guy need to be appreciative that they're doing this, but also be aware enough to know that you need to be the one to come to them and ask about these, you know, the deeper things that they're actually feeling or thinking. Like, you know, they're lying, for example, to avoid unnecessary conflict. Be willing to say, but babe, like, how do you really think about this? Or like, what's really actually bugging you about the scenario, you know? They're lying to encourage you. You can say, hey, I appreciate the encouragement, but like, really, like, do you think I can actually do this? Or what things do you think I could do better that would give you even more assurance that this thing could be done? Like, be willing as a guy to, again, drop your ego a little bit, realize that she has legitimate concerns behind these things, and then say, okay, let me just go into her and ask her, like, what are your real thoughts, your real feelings? And that'll make her feel more connected. And also it'll make her realize that you're actually open to her coming to you in a truthful manner, to where she'll lie a lot less and ultimately be feeling like she can be her true self and authentic when she has interactions with you. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Harry Dating Conversations. If you want to get in on the conversation, be sure to leave comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts and feelings are. Also, you can write to me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com to inquire about anything that's going on in your dating life in general, or anything you want me to talk about on this show. Be sure to go to introvertdatingsuccess.com. Check out my eBooks, audiobooks, programs, coaching, and yes, albums, all of which are designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. I'm out. Peace.